Hello and welcome to On the Rocks, a BRTFC Supporters Club podcast where we discuss all things BRTFC, and I'm your host, Liam Goodley. This broadcast and our club are sponsored by Reynolds Furniture. Visit their store on 27 to 31 High Street, Bognor Regis today, or log on to their website www.reynoldsfurniture.co.uk for more details on a fantastic local service they can offer you. I'm joined today over the phone by one special Rock stalwart. He is the editor of the official Rocks Match Day programme, Daniel Story. Thanks for joining me, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. How are you, Liam?
Yeah, all good. Just bearing up. Obviously, I've been off work since the 23rd of March. I know you're still working. How's that? How is life without football for you so far?
Yeah, it's tough, without being too cliche here. I mean, football is pretty much my life, really. Most of my money goes on watching football. I've been pretty much passionate about it since I was, about sort of 9, 10 years old. So, yeah, football's a big part of my life. I watch it quite regularly when I can, when I'm not working. And yeah, it's quite strange not having it around. This is normally a time of the season when it gets interesting. Relegation, hots up, promotion. You get the playoffs in a couple of months, and all that's probably not going to happen now. So yeah, quite sad. But what I must add quickly, really, is at the end of the day, there's a very bad thing going on at the moment. There's very, very nasty what's happening in the world at the moment with this COVID-19 pandemic, and people's lives are going to be immensely changed by what's gone on over the last few weeks, and what will continue over the next couple of months, really. And when we do get back to some sort of normality, whenever that may be, people's lives are going to be changed. And when you think about that, football matters very little, really. And we're talking about football tonight, and we will talk about it a lot, but let's just get it in perspective. Football means absolutely nothing compared to people losing their lives and people losing their livelihoods. It's very sad, and we must put that in perspective when we are discussing football. But we're here to talk about football, and hopefully over the next hour or so we can help cheer people's lives just a little bit during this hard time.
Well, that's the spirit that we want to hear, Dan. And I know you were at the Horsham game because unfortunately I wasn't able to. We were going to do the podcast that day. My apologies for that not being able to do that, but the game turned out to be our last of the season, a 2-0 victory against Horsham. What were your thoughts on that match?
Yeah, what a game of football. I mean, I haven't been down to watch Bognor that many times this season, both home and away, because I've been quite busy with another project I was undertaking. But yeah, what a game of football that was for Step 3 football. I mean, it was two local rivals. I mean, over the last sort of few years, we've been kind of top dogs in Sussex, apart from maybe Eastbourne who have been above us. But now we got the likes of Lewis and Horsham up there. And yeah, they gave us a right good game of football. But yeah, Bognor came out. On the night, they were absolutely on it. And it looked after the game as if we could really, really put a run together and maybe just make them playoffs. But it was a real good advert for Step 3 football. And local derby, passionate. There was a bit of niggle at half time. There was a couple of naughty challenges in the game, and that's what you love. That's what you go to football for, isn't it? For a local derby, and it's just a shame that was it, really, because we were just getting going, weren't we? Really, and what were we? We were about 8 or 9 points adrift with 2 games in hand and very favourable running. So that game would have set us up very nicely for attack at them playoffs. So yeah, what a game of football.
I still think we had an outside chance. A lot of people at the match were saying to me that they didn't think we had a chance. I still think we really had an outside chance of making 5th. I know we were still some points off, and we still had, 10 games left?
Yeah.
8 to 10 games. But I think we still had an outside chance of making it. Okay, Cray Wanderers, they would have been wanting to get their own back since our...
Yeah, that would have been a tough game.
Yeah. In the season, but I think away from home, you just never know. But I think it was like 7 home games left and 3 away games. So I think we really had a good chance to make it. But other people disagree with me.
Yeah, no, we had the team was just getting set up nicely there, so it's a kind of you'll never know nearly now, will we? But yeah, I think we just got on going at the right time, and yeah, you never know, do you? You never know.
You never know. The season that never was, we'll always remember it anyway. As many people already know, Dan, you've now been running the Rocks Match Day programme for a while. How did you get involved with that?
Yeah, so this was a strange one, really. So the particular Saturday that I went down to Bognor, I wasn't actually due to go down to Bognor that day. I was actually due to go and watch another game of football, but I'm not sure what happened. Probably knowing me, I probably got up too late. And I actually went down to Bognor, and I'm not sure if this was the first time that Rob had advertised it in the programme, but it was in that programme. It was in the programme for that game, and I remember the game. It was Billericay at home in early January, I think, just before we got promoted. So it would have been the 16-17 season, 2016-17. and there was an advert in there from Rob, and yeah, he was asking for a new program editor, and I'd done a bit of similar online. I'd say I'd never done a program, but you know, I'd done a bit of writing. I knew how to put stuff together, and I've already thought I could help. But let's just say at that point, I didn't quite realise what I was taking on. So, well, I think we'll get on it. We'll get onto it in a minute. How it. The act and the stuff involved to put it together. But yeah, it was at that point I sort of wrote to Rob and Jack and told them what I'd been doing. I copied him in on a couple of links and stuff I did. I think the next home game, Rob had put a article in the programme that I'd written myself. So at that point, I thought it was going to be quite a fairly easy thing for me to do. But let's just say I didn't quite realise what I was taking on.
Yeah, quite a big task, and I know it's a real commitment to produce a programme for every home game, a thankless task really, and no small feat. How long does a typical programme take you to create for each match, Dan?
Well, so in them early days when I was learning, and let's say I was having to learn very quickly, it was probably taking a good sort of 25 to 30 hours a week, so a very long time, because I was basically having to learn how to put a program together. So just going back to what I was just saying about not quite knowing what I was taking on, I sort of believed I would sort of write a few articles and then the rest would be kind of put together by someone else, but that was not the case at all. And I met Jack in the summer of that year, so the summer after we'd been promoted to the National South, and he showed me the Haven program from the season before, and he said this is the kind of the program we want. And it kind of then sort of, I realised then, I thought, oh my God, what have I taken on here? So a few weeks later, I went down to see Rob, and Rob basically said, no, you got to put it all together, Dan. And he had a very old program that he was using. We'll get onto the program that I use later on. You've got one other questions you've asked me. But yeah, so, and then I came back and I thought, Christ, what have I taken on here? So for the sort of first sort of 8 or 9 programs, Rob kind of was still putting the program together, and I was just providing the articles and everything that went in there. So it was and that's why the programs kind of looked the same. And then we got to the Christmas of that year, and basically Rob said, look, you got to start doing it on your own. So I had the program, and I had to basically start from scratch. And the first program I did on my own was Leyton Orient at home, but it all came out wrong. All the sizes were wrong. We had everything wrong, and it was just an absolute nightmare. And all I can say is, at the time, and I said it to Rob, thank you so much to Rob at the time, because he actually put the program together in about a day and a half. But then, so obviously, after that, I realised what I'd done wrong, and then for the next sort of 3 or 4 programs I was doing them on my own, we slowly but surely got to, I got used to the program I was using, and I gradually found my feet. But certainly in them early days, yeah, it was probably taking up 35-40 hours of my week. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was fairly new into the relationship, and yeah, she wasn't particularly too impressed at how long it was taking. So yeah, at that time it was a very long task, but nowadays I've got a very good way of doing it, and I've been doing it for 2.5 seasons now. So yeah, it probably takes about 15 hours now. If I write a lot more stuff for it, so if I write up an interview or if I write up something quite long, then you're probably looking at 20 hours. But yeah, all in all, probably takes about 15 hours these days. So yeah, I've got that down quite a lot.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, it's almost like a full-time job when you first started, and it sounds like.
Oh, definitely.
Obviously, Rob Garforth, Stato, as we affectionately know him as, obviously was the previous editor. Do you feel pressure to deliver a good quality program after Rob did so well for so long?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you look at what Rob was putting out. I mean, Rob had been doing it a very long time, and so yeah, I was under a lot of pressure. And if you look at the Wheelstone program, which is the first program I put together on my own, it wasn't great. And did I get a lot of stick for that, you know, on the forum and stuff like that? And that hurt, you know, because I'd put myself out there to do something, and people were like having a go at me. So yeah, I did feel the pressure, but you know what? I've never backed down from a challenge. I've taken something on in good faith, and I think slowly but surely, I think you have seen that I'm very capable of producing my own program as good as Rob did it. You know, I don't look at it as I'm trying to do better than Rob. Rob did it the way Rob wanted to do it, and I do the way I wanted to do it. And yeah, there was pressure to deliver the same quality which Rob was doing, but it took a while because I was learning at the same time. But I think if you look at the program now, I think we have as good a program as we've ever had at the club. And you know, all the previous editors before me did an excellent job, and I'm just kind of trying to continue that tradition really. And yeah, it's not a competition, and I'm just trying to do the best I can with the knowledge and and design skills that I have or I've acquired over the period I've been doing it, really.
Oh, that's good. I mean, that's great that you've taken it on, and obviously, as you say, you've been doing it for 2.5 years now, maybe more.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of fans will obviously agree that you're now getting to that point where you're getting used to it, and it's getting to a point where you can almost do it in your sleep.
Yeah.
But I'm just interested to know, Dan, what your first Rocks memory was, and can you remember your first Rocks match?
Yeah, so I'd pretty much grown up on a diet of Football League football. I'd watched a lot. We'll get on to who I was following in a few questions' time. But yeah, I'd grown up on a diet of Football League football, Championship football, League One. And but I was getting quite disillusioned, really. I was getting quite disillusioned how much it was costing. I was getting disillusioned with, a lot of stuff that was going on at games. And me and my brother had spent some time working in Bognor when we was younger. My brother had spent a long time down there compared to what I did. And we said, why don't we go to a Bognor game? And it was during the 2010-11 season. And I didn't know at the time, but the club had just been through a horrific period in their history where they'd dropped about 2 leagues. And we went down for a midweek game. It was it would have been around November-ish time, and November, October. It would have been around that time anyway. So we went down for an evening game during the 2010-11 season, and it was Eastbourne at home. And ironically, it was the only game that Bognor lost at home that season. But after that, we just loved it. We could have a beer on the terrace. The football, at the time, we believed the football was better than what we'd been watching in League One. I mean, that was probably exaggerated a little bit, but to be fair, and as you know, and a lot of Rocks fans know, Bognor play some very good football, and it kind of stuck. I went to one more home game that season, and I also did Chatham Town. We also did Chatham Town away on the last day of the season, which obviously we could have won the league and been promoted.
Yes,
and yes, it was a very messy day that day. Let's just say there was a lot of drink involved, but yes. So yeah, my first memory was that Eastbourne game, which we lost, and then yeah, it kind of went from there, really.
I remember the Chatham Town game vividly because I was at a time when I wasn't doing a match report and I was screaming from the terraces, score a goal,
yeah.
That's all we needed to do. One goal would have meant that we got promoted, but obviously we finished, I think, second that season, which meant we had to go for the dreaded playoffs.
Yeah.
But it was one of those games where all we needed to do was get one goal. And it was a 0-0. I think it was a 0-0 draw or 1-1 draw. I can't remember quite what the result was, but it was a poor draw. And basically, all we needed to do was score one goal to see us, make that position. But obviously, it wasn't to be.
Yeah, it was.
It was very vivid that day because it was one of those games where you thought, come on, we can do this. They were bottom. I think they were near the bottom of the league.
They were. I think they got relegated.
Weren't we, to win that one?
They got relegated, and I'd grown up in Chatham as well, so it was quite a bit of a. It was quite, me and my brother were laughing about it at the time that we'd grown up in Chatham and now we was watching Bognor play at Chatham. And obviously that was another reason why I followed the club in the early days, because I used to play a lot of Kent clubs like Ramsgate, Faversham, Whitstable, Herne Bay, and it was down the road for me. And when you'd grown up on watching, you'd go to Scunthorpe away on a Tuesday night, going 20 miles down the road to Herne Bay was slightly more appealing when you get to a certain age and it is going all the way to Scunthorpe on a Tuesday night. But that Chatham Town game, I mean, yeah, it was heartbreaking for the club, but yeah, I mean, the game itself, it is still one of my favourite memories in the sense that it was just, for me, it said that the club was back. The club had gone through such a hard time over the 3 or 4 seasons prior to that, and that game said, you know what? Yeah, we've been denied promotion. Yeah, we haven't won the league, but the club is back, and I think that's what that game kind of symbols for me, really, the Chatham Town away game.
Yeah, no, it was a turning point for sure. And I believe you're not actually based in Bognor, obviously, as you say. You're living. Is it in Canterbury?
No, I live in Ashford. I just use the Canterbury Rocks handle on the forum because more people know about Canterbury than they do Ashford, and also you got Ashford in Middlesex as well. But no, I actually live 15 miles up the road in Ashford.
Do you find it difficult to follow the Bognor team from that far away, or do you find it easier now? Obviously, social media and online and radio.
Well, yeah, I don't attend as many games as I was probably attending 5 or 6 years ago. But I've never had a problem in attending games because I work for a train company, so it's quite easy for me to get about. And I've got a license, obviously car license and a bike license, so I've never had any problem. It's just I don't go to as many games now because I've been to every ground in the Isthmian Premier League, so I don't attend as many games now as I did. Plus, I'm quite busy with a lot of other projects that I do in regards to my football habits. So, but yeah, no, I've never had a problem following the club, and obviously nowadays we don't play as many Kent clubs as when I was first going, but they're still fairly easy to get to, you know. So yeah, when I can, I go along, and yeah, I don't have a problem getting down to games now. It's all fairly easy for me.
So you'd say it's easier to get to away games now in general than home games?
Well, I've always preferred away games anyway, so I'll always make an effort more to go to an away game than I will to come all the way down to Bognor. But yeah, it's never been a problem getting to games. It's just more that I'm very busy with other parts of my life and other projects in football that I do. So I don't always get the time to go and attend Bognor games as say someone who's a regular fan would go. And I always said to Jack as well that when I took the programme on, that I wouldn't be attending every game. That wasn't kind of what I wanted to do. So, but I can still do the programme very well from where I am, and also, you know, there's so much content online, there's so many apps that I don't need to be attending games really to be able to make sure the programme is kept up to date and delivered to a good quality standard really.
No, I think the stuff you're putting in the programme, I think if people have a good read in there, there's some really good content, obviously from within the club and from external sources.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do interviews with Simon Cook online with your website blog, and these are really proving popular reads. What's the secret behind asking the right questions? I always find it hard myself to ask a question that is either not too patronising or trying to insinuate anything which might be construed incorrectly. I don't know if you find that same problem, but I always find that when I'm interviewing anybody, I don't want to come across that I'm patronising somebody. It's very difficult. I don't think people take into account how difficult it is to interview somebody, especially somebody in a high position like a manager or a coach.
Yeah, let me first say I have an extremely good relationship with Simon Cook. He is a very approachable bloke. He's a very nice guy, and we have a very good working relationship. However, the sort of key to asking the right questions is I've done similar things in my past. I've spoken to ex-footballers. So I don't necessarily get too worried about asking the questions, because at the end of the day, you see, I am the programme editor, but I'm also a fan of the club. So I asked Simon what I want to know as a fan, and I think if you look back to the National South season when the club struggled in the league, and there was the club had gone from a club that was really sort of close to the fans to a club that kind of the fans and the club were kind of each other's throats every week. And obviously we had Jack's 6 weeks, give me 6 weeks, and after that a lot of the fan base kind of got a bit disillusioned what was going on, and the team was struggling. And you know, at the beginning of the season I spoke to Simon. I said, look Simon, I think we need to be a bit more with the programme to get we need to have a two-way communication between the club and the fans. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, Jack doesn't care what he says. Jack will say what he wants to say, and good luck to him. You know, he's well entitled to say that. He's been at the club for a very long time. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't need someone like me to tell him what he should be and shouldn't be saying. And he quite happily say things that maybe fans don't agree with. But Simon is obviously the middleman, and he does a lot of the work that Jack obviously gave to him that he used to do. And we agreed at the start of the season we'd do a piece in the programme every couple of months from the boardroom. And I think we had about 2 or 3 in the programme. And so I don't feel scared about asking Simon the questions, because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm a fan and I ask the questions that fans want to know. And there's no point in me asking silly questions, because people won't take me seriously. So I will ask tough questions, because at the end of the day, Simon is really open and will answer those questions. And also it's because they're answers that people want, they're questions that people want answering. So, you know, you should never be scared of asking questions. Yeah, people will tell you if they don't like the question. I mean, I've seen things on TV myself when people being interviewed have asked the interviewer why they're getting frustrated and stuff. But sometimes you got to ask them difficult questions, and providing you don't go too over the top, then generally you'll get the answers that you want. And if you look at the interviews that I've done with Simon in the programme and online, then you know he provides the answers that in a very good manner, and that I'm generally happy with. And if I was a fan, if I was another fan reading that, I would be happy with them myself as well.
No, I agree. I think some of the stuff, I mean, I've read definitely off your blog, obviously really interesting. Obviously in the downtime now, we've got COVID-19. Obviously people are crying out for information, and basically positive vibes coming from the club, because obviously the clubs had to stop in its tracks this season. Where can people find that blog website, Dan? Is it online? How can Rocks fans check it out?
Yeah, so it's there's quite a lot on there. It's not just a Bognor based blog. It's actually got a lot more other stuff on there related to Bognor. The blog itself, you can find it. It's a WordPress blog, and it's basically all one word. Kentish Man. That's KENTISH Man 2015. WordPress.com, and you can find loads of stuff on there. I mean, I'm particularly proud of the two interviews I did with my two sort of favourite Bognor coaches, which was Jamie Howe and Darren Kilpatrick. And if you read the Darren Kilpatrick interview, he tells he's very honest, and you can find out a lot about why the club struggled in the National South if you read that interview. I've also got a lot of other stuff on there, like I did a write-up on FC United when I went up there, and that was one of my extremely proud ones that I did, and that got a lot of feedback from FC United fans about how much they liked it. I went to Wembley with AFC Wimbledon, and that got some really good feedback of AFC Wimbledon fans, and that was on there. And also wrote about the history of AFC Russian and Diamonds. And again, I mean, I do quite specialise in writing about clubs that have been through traumatic history. So if I can find a club that's been through a traumatic history, then it's my bread and butter, really. But yeah, the blog is not really sort of Bognor Pacific. The blog is just who I want to write about, and it happens to have some other stuff on there that's Bognor related that you can read about. But yeah, there's loads on there that you can read. Funny enough, someone was asking me today about writing and stuff, and I directed him to my blog and said, if you go on there, you'll find quite a lot of stuff that's to do with other things apart from Bognor Regis Town.
No, I think a lot of fans, even on our message board, talk about other clubs quite a lot, and I think they find other clubs, what's happening in other clubs quite interesting in comparison to us. So I think sometimes, even if there's not any Bognor content on there, they're obviously looking out and looking for that sort of information and finding out what's happening in other clubs and whether there's a trend across these clubs sometimes that you find. And I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure you find that all the time when you're doing these blogs. How do you feel? How do you feel like things are going off the pitch for BRTFC right now? And the media side seems to be improving week on week. We now have a dedicated team with you doing the programme obviously every week, putting out content obviously online as well. All the stuff Lee Roberts does with Rocks Radio, Mike Fleet and Josh will do the editing for the online material. We also have got obviously Carl Eldridge, who's doing a lot on social media and getting good news stories on our website. Ian Guppy does a lot also in this area behind the scenes as well. And firstly, are you enjoying your role in this expanding team, and what do you enjoy most about doing the programme editing?
The thing I enjoy most about doing the programme is when it's finished. But joking aside, there's some great people involved with the football club. I mean, what Ian Guppy does at the football club is unbelievable. And, I'll never get anywhere near to what he's doing at the football club. He's a Bognor fan through and through. He lives in the area. He takes his girls there. That is part of his life. And what he does is, it's unquantifiable what he does, because it's amazing, really. I don't want to blow too much smoke here, but yeah, he's a great guy, and what he does is phenomenal with the mascots, and he does the club shop, and he puts stuff out on social media, and yeah, it's great. Lee, again, another really great guy. I mean, Lee is a massive help to me, because when Lee does the interviews with Jack and Robbie, it makes my life easier, because then I'm able to put that sort of stuff in the programme. And obviously, yeah, fans have already heard what Lee or Lee and Robbie and Jack have got to say. But when Rob was doing the programme, he didn't have access to Lee doing that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, Lee is a massive help to me. He's a lovely guy. He gets on really well with Robbie. You can tell that from his interviews, and he's brought the club kind of into the 21st century in regards to commentary and that side. I don't actually know Mike and Josh that well, so it's only after you've just mentioned that they do the online material, so I can't comment.
Yeah, they're a bit more behind the scenes.
Yeah,
they do a lot of the social media, YouTube, Facebook. A lot of the artwork you see on social media, they kind of cover.
Right, okay.
A lot of the videoing, I think Josh took over a lot of videoing material. So obviously videoing of matches, videoing of interviews, he's now sort of taken on, and obviously I think it's just a really good vibe, in the background, with the media side, that things are starting to really, take a new form and starting to, transform into a big team, which is what we want. We want people doing multiple tasks. We don't want it all obviously offloaded, like you say, with people like Guppy. Guppy will take on multiple tasks.
Yeah.
but it must get on top of you. It must get on top of him sometimes. You just don't know. So it's good that so many people are getting involved.
Yeah, and and at the end of the day, I think a lot of clubs now, even at step 3, they want to be professional and they want to put stuff out there and they want to have good social media content. They want to have good programs. They want to have. They want to interact with people because at the end of the day, at that level, you need to be able to get people through the turnstiles. And the way of getting people through the turnstiles is to put yourself out there, make yourself look like a kind of a professional outlet. And other people, just kind of before we go on to the next question, look at the photos that Tommy McMillan does for the football club. I mean, he's doing photos to what level I've seen better than in the football league. So that sort of stuff brings people to the football club. So yeah, it's great what's happening at the football club, and it's kind of dragging it into the 21st century and stuff like that. And there's lots of clubs all down the pyramid doing some absolutely great stuff with social media and the internet, and it's great that Bognor are doing exactly the same, definitely. And I'm happy to play my part in that. And yeah, just joking aside, yeah, my favourite part of the programme is obviously when it's finished and I get to see how my work is done, and I'm very proud of that, definitely.
No, it must be a real sort of crowning moment when you sort of know it's done and it's complete. It's sent off to the printers and it's down to them now to get it done.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So with the season now a foregone conclusion, what was your personal favourite moment or moments from this cut short 2019-20 season?
Yeah, so as I mentioned already, I've not been to that many games this season, but the games I have been to have been quite certainly been good games. But Margate away 6-1. I'm never adverse to seeing Bognor winning Kent. It's one of my favourite things when Bognor come into Kent and beat Kent sides for sure. Even though I grew up in the area, but I quite enjoy them. So yeah, Margate away. And yeah, obviously Horsham away as well. Just 2 really good games, and I think those 2 games showed you how good this team can be. But I think at times there's been other games that not necessarily I went to, but certainly other games where maybe we didn't quite show how good we were. But certainly Margate away. I went to Bowes and Pitsea away as well, and we ground it out there, and Horsham. So yeah, those games are the sort of games I saw, and they're my sort of favourite memories from the season. But I didn't see that many, so but the ones I did see were good games.
Wasn't a bad match to see us annihilate Margate 6-1. I thought that was a Crane hat trick as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. You don't see that very often from a fullback, do you? I remember seeing a Leyton Orient fullback score 3 goals against one of my other football clubs I follow. But that was certainly the first time I'd seen a fullback score a hat trick.
Yeah, it was really, really good match, and I think just nothing went wrong and everything went to plan. I think that was one of those days, What are your thoughts on the season becoming null and void, obviously due to COVID-19? We understand the circumstances. Do you think we could have just pushed the season back a few months, given the circumstance, in your opinion? Do you believe the leagues were right to scrap the season?
Oh man, I mean, this is the hardest question you could have asked me, really, because if you'd asked me this question about 3 weeks ago, I'd have told you that the FA were probably the worst people on earth. But I've had a chance to listen to it. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I've listened to an interview from the FC United, one of the FC United Manchester director. I listened to podcasts involved in Kent football, and they've discussed this, and a couple of other ones. The end of the day, whatever the FA did was never ever going to please anyone. What I would say on that matter is I'm certainly glad they didn't go down the points per game route, because at the end of the day, at this point in the season, results don't go that way. So to decide a league on PPG or points per game, I wouldn't have been favoured at all. And I think but it's hard. I feel sorry for, likes of Jersey Bulls and Vauxhall Motors. And also, I've just been reading a book about South Shields. Now, South Shields, 7 years ago, were getting 70 people watching them, and they were about to go out of business. So now they're top of the Northern Premier League, which is the equivalent of the league that Bognor are in. They're about to be promoted to possibly be promoted to the Northern Conference North. So you can't argue, you can't begrudge them that they kind of deserve their promotion. So that's where it sort of pulls at my heartstrings, really, because football should be settled on the pitch. But I'm also of the opinion that who governs the FA? It seems to me the FA can kind of do what they want, and there's no governance. Now, I might be talking absolute gibberish there, and people will probably tell me if I am, but it just seems to me as if the FA can make decisions, but they're not accountable for them decisions. Now, I've heard things that say that there were clubs that weren't asked their opinion, which seems madness. But like I say, the FA, they were never ever going to please everyone. I mean, I still don't think the decision's been ratified. So where we are with it, I still don't know. I think there's 200 clubs now that have signed an appeal or a letter to the FA to ask them to stop that happening. Also, how can you have the Premiership and the Football League and the National League still on hold, but also the leagues below that all null and void? It's madness. But then, like I say, I've listened to other interviews, and contracts are a big thing, and I think that's what's kind of done it for us at our level, and that football clubs at our level can't keep paying players. But I just think maybe they went a bit too early. Maybe they could have looked at other ideas. I really don't know. Like I say, I've listened to so many podcasts and interviews, and I've changed my opinion so many times. And yeah, it's a real horrible one, isn't it? We can have a little laugh at Worthing because it's not going up, but you feel sorry for them at the same time because if they'd gone up, they would have earned that. And yeah, it's just the whole thing is crazy. And I hope we never have to deal with this sort of situation again, because it's just a crazy situation. And like I say, whatever decision the FA came to was never ever going to please everybody. And unfortunately, it seems the decision they have come to is not gone down very well at all, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert, but my heart says it was the wrong decision, but my head probably says, yeah, that was probably the only way they could really go. So yeah, tough one.
If obviously the roles were reversed and we were top of the league, I'm sure we'd be.
We'd be screaming from the rooftops. Yeah,
we would be. I'm sure we would. We've worked hard to get to that position. That's why I feel a bit sorry for Worthing in that they were quite a way clear at the top of the league, and I'm sure they've spent a lot of money on their team, or that's what I've heard anyway, to get to that point. And if things don't work out next season for them, I'm not sure what will happen. But
I mean, I think
if Bognor were in that same position, surely we'd be saying the same thing as what Worthing are.
Well, yeah, and then you last season they used points per game to decide the playoffs. A bit further down than us, but you had the crazy situation where you had 2 playoff finals where teams couldn't get promoted. I mean, that was absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, obviously, if we were top of the league, we would be screaming from the rooftops as well, I'm sure. And like I say, with the South Shields thing, you can understand exactly why South Shields are behaving in the way they are, because they were, like I said, they are reading the book I've been reading, they were a football club on the brink of extinction. Now they're on the brink of Step 2 football, which is a decent standard of football. So you can understand why they are up in arms, and you can't really begrudge them being like that, really. But it's just a truly horrible situation, and I genuinely feel sorry for the people making these decisions, because we can sit here and discuss them and tell them they're wrong, but they say, well, how would you like it if you had to make that decision? And but like I said, I just think the FA sometimes, to me, they seem a bit ungovernable, and I really think there should be someone governing the FA.
Yeah, no, I think you've got the opposite grounds for, people agreeing with you on that, and I think this is gonna last for a long time. All the discussions, obviously, the longer coronavirus is affecting everything, the longer obviously everything else is gonna sort of snowball. It's gonna snowball effect onto everything else. I think we've got a long way to go yet before we find out what's actually going to happen for next year, because we're not sure actually, obviously, how long everything's going to be shut down and locked down for. When not working for and supporting the football club, what do you like to do in your spare time, Dan?
Yeah, so I love my photography. I do quite a lot of football photography in my spare time. I love my 2 wheels, so I love my cycling. I love my motorcycling. I don't get out on my cycle as much as I should do. I probably should do now, really. I've got a bit more spare time on my hands. So yeah, I love all that. Really, I taught myself photography, digital photography, so I'm pretty good at that. I do quite a lot of that in my spare time, and yeah, just they're my sort of passions, really. And blogging, obviously, I do my blogging. I love me writing. Again, it's another thing that I probably should do a lot more of, but I don't always get the time because I've got a very busy full-time job, and also, over them years I've had girlfriends that obviously take up time as well. So, I haven't always had time to do that. But yeah, they're my passions, really: photography, cycling, motorcycling, writing, and I've done quite a lot of long-distance walking. There's some mates of mine that We go quite a lot of long distance walking, like 20 miles, 25 miles in a day. So yeah, that's another thing I do a lot. But yeah, I've got a lot of hobbies. Anything that's in a bit of adventure, you can probably normally put my name on it, really.
It sounds like you like the outdoors. I think that's one of the things that people are struggling with at the moment. Obviously, they're being told you can do sort of one meaningful walk out in the countryside, but then you have to be back home unless you're working like yourself. So I don't believe we've ever met, Dan, at a football match. I've seen photos of you and obviously friends of you on Facebook. It's amazing. For all the years we've been supporting the team, we've never actually met or seen each other. It shows there is a massive following of the club. Given the size of our fan base, do you believe we have a big future ahead, and do you think we might be a sleeping giant of a football club?
Well, yeah. Let's just say when we go to sleeping giant, the football club isn't going to make the Premier League unless there's someone down in Sussex that wants to throw quite a lot of money at it. But I mean, what Bognor should be aiming for is they should be aiming to be the biggest non-league club in Sussex. Obviously, you've got Crawley Town in the Football League, so they're the kind of second biggest club behind Brighton and Hove Albion. But yeah, we should be aiming to be as big as Eastbourne Borough, who are the team that are the furthest up the pyramid in terms of Sussex non-league football. And yeah, that's what we should be aiming at. But it's difficult because the National South now is a very tough league, and we found that out when we went in there. And unless you've got sort of 1,500, 12 to 1,200, 1,500 watching you, you're going to struggle. And I remember Dabba said that we needed another, I think he said something like 70 grand just to survive at that level. That's not to compete at that level. That's just to survive at that level. So, it's very difficult, but the club should always be looking to be the biggest non-league football club in Sussex. And at times they've been fairly near there, and they were above Eastbourne for a little while, a couple of seasons ago. But obviously Eastbourne, remain at that level, and good luck to them. But we got Horsham and Lewis now threatening to, and Worthing obviously, but we should be aiming to be as big as we can be. But it's very difficult because, as Jack often says, and people don't like hearing it, but you need money and you need a fan base. And Bognor is a reasonably sized town. Obviously, Worthing is bigger. Again, something that obviously Vox fans don't always like hearing. But yeah, if we can do that, then that is what we should be aiming for. And the club, should continue to try and get back to National South. And hopefully, if we do ever get back there, we have learned a lot of lessons from when we was in there last time. Because obviously, it was a very difficult season, and it hurt a lot of people that we only stayed up there for 1 year. But that is the aim for a club of our size. Obviously, if there's someone in Sussex who's got quite a lot of money and wants to, put a bit of money in, you never know, they might get in the Football League. But I personally don't think a club of Bognor's size would be challenging the Football League. But, if we could get to the National South, again, the National League would be very hard. There's some very, very big clubs in there. And
most of them are full time as well.
Yes, that's very true. And unless you've got the money and the fan base, you're just not going to complete with clubs the size of Wrexham, Notts County, Stockport. When they were, I think Stockport are in there now, aren't they? Gateshead, and who else? You got Harrogate up there. So these are all clubs who've got fairly reasonable size. For Halifax, these are clubs who've got fairly history. They've got big histories and big fan bases, and it would be very hard for Bognor to compete at that level. But they certainly should be looking to survive and thrive at National South level.
No, I fully agree with you. I think you need to be obviously financially on a good footing. The ground needs to obviously upgrade, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But obviously, back to the programmes, Dan. What are your thoughts on the recent ruling? I think it's the last few years that clubs no longer have to produce a physical hard copy of a programme. I can remember Lewis and Carshalton as two teams that no longer produce them at the ground, and only online versions are available for people to download. Is it a dying art, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, absolutely, it's a dying art. I mean, if you want to maintain a relationship with a girl, you probably shouldn't become a programme editor. That would be my first warning. It's a dying art. It's hard. At the end of the day, football clubs at our level and at most levels below the Football League, and probably even in the Football League, they need to cut their cloth accordingly. So if a programme is not viable, then clubs won't produce it. I mean, I've had many discussions, and I don't always agree with certain stuff that goes on with the programme, even at Bognor. It's not something I'm going to get into here because that's something to do with me and the people that I work with the programme with. But yeah, it's a tough one because it's a cost that football clubs probably say they can do without. But what I would say about that is, if you produce a good program and you put good content in there with good quality photography and good quality material, and you keep the adverts to, a reasonable level, you don't want adverts absolutely every single page, and then you will get people buying it, but if you don't, then people won't buy it. And programs are up against the internet, they're up against blogs, it's a tough time for program editors and programs. But if you can produce something that people want to buy and people enjoy reading, then people will still buy it. But I absolutely understand why football clubs choose not to produce a physical copy, because you need the person to put the effort in. And even me, at times this season, I've wondered if it was worth carrying on. I've had my ups and downs with it, and I've had my frustrations. You need someone with a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of creativity, and you need the football club to make it so they're not losing money whilst they're selling it, if you see what I mean. The program kind of needs to pay for itself.
Yeah, obviously, I know a lot of fans that obviously appreciate the programs there, because there's people that collect them out there, and I do believe there's still people out there that actually want the physical copy.
Absolutely.
When they go to the ground, it's a way of remembering they've actually been to the ground. So it's one of those things that I think is still appreciated across the board. Okay, yes, there's an expense to it, and obviously the printing costs can't be cheap, but obviously when it comes down to it, it's got all the information you need in one little booklet for that one game, and it's obviously a bit of merchandise really that only lasts for that game, but it's something that sort of recognises that you were there, and I think that's something that's very important for people.
Yeah, and programs are part of football's history, and I've always bought programs and I've gone to game. I mean, that's probably how I got into doing programs in the first place. I mean, I've got far too many programs here in my house. I mean, I threw away quite a lot about 2 years ago when I moved, but I've still got far too many. But they are part of the football landscape, and it will be a great shame if they ever do go. And I've got nothing but admiration for anyone that puts one together, because it's not easy, and it can impact on other parts of your life as well. So it's not something you should probably undertake lightly. But I do enjoy the fact that most clubs still produce one. Whether that will be the case in 5 years' time, I don't know.
No, that's the question, is whether it's all going to go digital, and I think that sort of follows on nicely to the next question. Obviously, how does it all work? How do you put it together, Dan? Is it quite a difficult sort of jigsaw puzzle, or is it quite easy now that you've got the hang of it, and it's quite easy to put together on the computer?
Well, yeah, as I said earlier, obviously it's a lot easier now because I've been doing it for 2.5 seasons. So most of the stuff generally stays the same. So the adverts that we have generally last the whole season. The introduction page with the who's who of the football club, that stays as it is. There is other bits that generally stay as they are, but I kind of just sort of work backwards really. So I will probably start with the middle pages, which is where the scores and the teams are, and then I'll probably add stuff like what Chris Dell does, stuff that I get from the internet, the game. I think it's a game with the people, so I'll add stuff like that, and then I'll add other bits and pieces, like obviously the player photos for their sponsors. That tends to stay the same. So most stuff, I'd say 45% of the stuff that's in there tends to stay in there every week, so that's kind of half the battle done. All the other stuff is just obviously as and when I can do it really. So I will start with the easier stuff, and then kind of do the harder stuff towards the end. The kind of the last sort of stuff I do is I kind of write up the stuff with Robbie that Lee does. If I need to write my own editorial, then I'll write that at the end. And the last thing I generally do is the table, because a lot of teams like Lewis play on Wednesdays, so sometimes you have to wait until a Wednesday to put the table together. So generally the table will be the last thing I do. But yeah, I say 45% of it is probably already put together, and I just move it around to suit myself really.
Sounds like you've got it narrowed down, and it's quite a simple task for you now. And I just think sometimes it must be difficult to produce a Saturday program at home and then another one on a Tuesday night.
Oh yeah, that is life's worst nightmare when it happens, when we have a Saturday home game and a Tuesday home game. Yeah, it's my worst. When I see that, I often sort of pull my hair out, really. But it is what it is. Generally means I have to end up doing work on a Sunday. But yeah, you've just got to do it. That's what you've taken on. That's what the role is. And but I do sort of pull my hair out if we have more than one game a week. Certainly,
it must be difficult to put together if not much has happened in between those.
No, definitely not. No,
you might have a match report from the previous game, but other than that, you've got literally everything else to sort of think about and try and fit it in. But I'm sure there's material you can sort of pull offline and things now that obviously it's a lot easier now than it probably was, say, 10, 15 years ago, when obviously internet was in its infancy or beginning to get going, really. But go back to the playing side, Dan. In your opinion, who is the best player you've witnessed representing Bognor in your time following the side?
Oh, I've got a few. I've got to say, Stuart Axton, brilliant defender, great centre half. He used to play alongside Tim Bond, another great centre half. Other players like Luke Nightingale, Jason Pryor, Kane Willis, Craig Robson, all players that I really enjoyed watching. But I have to say, he just edges it above Stuart Axton, but I would say Terry Dodd, just because he always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. And in that period from sort of 2013 to 2015, he just always seemed to pop up and score goals. He scored in 2 playoff semi-finals. I think he scored against Godalming. I was watching that back the other day. I'm pretty sure he scored in that game. He also scored in the defeat to Lowestoft. And yeah, he just really, in that sort of 2-year period, when Jason Pryor, I think by that point had either moved on or certainly was coming to the end of his time at the club before he came back, he just banged the goals in. And I enjoyed seeing him play. And I wish I could have it. I wish we could have him back in a way, because he seemed to always pop up and score goals at the right time. But players move on, don't they?
Yeah, fully fit Terry Dodd was one of the best players I think we've seen in the front line. And
absolutely, yeah.
I always look back at his season. The season we made the final of the County Cup, and I think it was Peacehaven, and he hit both posts with one shot. And it was the game, obviously, we lost. But I always remember that season. If I only scored that, it might have been a different story. But Terry Dodd is one of those players. If he's fully fit, he's going to cause some teams problems.
Oh, absolutely,
he was one of the
biggest
signings from Worthing, I believe we got him, and he proved his worth. Obviously now I believe he's at Wick, managing down there. As last time I heard, I'm not sure if he's still there.
I'm not quite sure where he is. I don't tend to follow fans' teams.
I think he still plays,
but yeah,
he's not so much player. He's more of a manager / player. But I think he still plays, but not as often as I suppose he did at Bognor. But
yeah, just a great player to watch.
Players that didn't quite. He could have done a few more years with us. I think he's one of those players that I thought maybe give him more time. If he didn't perform one season, he give him another chance another season. He might have been a top goal scorer again for us.
Yeah, like I say, when he was on it, he was absolutely on it, and he was just a joy to watch. And yeah, that was probably the period when I was going quite regularly, sort of 2013 to 2016, and he just always seemed to be there at the right time. And like you say, if he did suffer injuries, which I wasn't particularly aware of because I wasn't doing the program at the time, so I tended to only really watch games and then go back to my life. But yeah, what a player, and just great. He was just how can you not love a goal scorer? But yeah, I have to say he edges it only slightly. I mean, Stuart Axton, what a defender! And if we could have him back, I'd snap him back next week. Just a great centre half, proper centre half.
Agree with you. And he went off to Scotland, I believe.
He did. Yeah,
he did, and that was a big loss for us, I think, as well, when we lost that. Centre defender that could, usually the tallest man in the back line, and was got stuck in everything, and popped in with a few odd goals as well. Stuart Axton, the Axeman, as we call him. But obviously, going further forward now, and obviously, I played a bit of football at college as a youngster, but never made it into a village team and never really gave competitive football a go. Did you play the game at all yourself, or were there any particular players you looked up to as a child or as a budding footballer? Who would you consider your favourite players growing up?
Yeah, so I played quite a lot of football growing up. I played from about 8 years old right through to I was probably about 25, 26. maybe a bit later. But yeah, I started off 11-a-side football. I was a goalkeeper, but I didn't really enjoy being in goal. It wasn't really a nice position to be in when you kept conceding goals. I then converted myself somehow into a defender. Don't ask me how I did that, but I did. And I played in some very good teams. I think I won a promotion or a league title with one team that I played with. I've still got the medal somewhere in my house. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I was a good player. I was a reasonable player. I wouldn't say I was brilliant. I probably could have been better if I'd been trained better. I probably would say I became a better footballer when I started taking up five-a-side, and then I played five-a-side from about sort of 16 through to about 25, and I became a much better player because you had to have more. You had a bit more time. You had not more time on the ball, but you got the ball a bit more often than you did in an 11-a-side game. And yeah, again,
technical, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, I won a league title with a couple of mates. I used to play with my brother and some friends, and I enjoy my time as a footballer. Like I say, I've got a lot of medals that I had when I was little. I was a reasonably good player. Players, I didn't look up to that many players. I don't always believe you should have too many heroes because your heroes don't always turn out to be the people you want them to be. But,
I go with that. I go with that sometimes, yeah.
But yeah, Mark Saunders, who played for Gillingham from around about 1997 to 2004-ish. Loved him. Brilliant player. So committed. Loved to tackle. Scored goals. And just a great player. And he came from Plymouth Argyle. We got him from there. Gillingham got him from there. And yeah, I loved watching him. I had his name on the back of one of my shirts at one point. And he was a very good player in a very, very good team.
No, I totally agree with that. You must have seen some great goals scored over the years whilst watching Bognor. What would you consider as your favourite Bognor finish to date?
Yeah, so I've got three here for you. I think I mentioned it to you last night on social media. I think people forget how good Ben Johnson was, and in that Dulwich Hamlet semi-final that unfortunately we lost, despite being 32 points ahead of him in the league. Yeah, so that free kick that he scored in that semi-final, I mean, what a goal. I mean, that's how good Ben Johnson was. If you look at that free kick online, and you can find it online, just a great free kick. Second one would be the absolute belter from Jimmy Mewett against Leyton Orient in the FA Trophy. Yeah. Again, you'll find it online. Just what a goal. I mean, if that had been on Match of the Day, you would have seen that goal. Do you know the Trevor Sinclair goal that often comes up in the FA Cup with the bicycle kick? I think you see it every season. If that was in the Premier League, you'd see that goal from Jimmy Mewett every single year. And my favourite goal, not because it was any particular great skill, it's because who it was scored against. So Scott Chamberlain scored against Maidstone United. Now, where I grew up, you have no like at all for Maidstone United as a football club, and to see Scott Chamberlain put the ball in the net against them, and I think Dan Thompson got the second goal, and we were the only team that season in the Isthmian Premier, or what it was then the Ryman Premier, to beat Maidstone United at home. So for me, just when Scott Chamberlain scored, yeah, brilliant. Just because who the goal came against.
He was another midfield maestro, wasn't he? Scott Chamberlain.
Yeah, great player. Yeah,
I couldn't, until you brought the name up, that sort of sparked my memory. He was another player, another good midfielder we had.
We had some great players. I mean, I wrote down a few other players. Steve Harper, another player, came in, brilliant, scored goals. Ashley Robinson scored. If we hadn't had him, we would never even got out of the Ryman South. So yeah, I mean, Scott Chamberlain was just another one of them players that you get a bit misty-eyed about, really. But yeah, when he scored against Maidstone United, he went up a level for me, for sure.
Oh, that's great memories. Your thoughts on the new ground improvements, Dan, planned for either this summer or the next? Obviously, the club have been organising this for some time. What are your thoughts on those?
So I haven't seen any physical copies of what the what the stand's going to look like. I hope it doesn't end up as one of them flat pack ones that you often see at non-league grounds. I really don't. If they can get it somewhere along the lines of what kind of, you see what they got at Burrows and Pitsea? If they can get
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
It's going to be like.
Yeah, if they can get that, then yeah, great. Again, you know, I think Jack was saying in the interview this week that if the ground is kind of not even up to the standard Isthmian Premier at this rate, so we got to get it done. So yeah, again, great. You know, I think unfortunately we are going to probably suffer on the field a little bit because a lot of money is going to be invested into those improvements. But over a longer period of time, if it brings Nyewood Lane, or the Nycamp as it's often called, up to a decent standard, then you can't argue. And yeah, it probably is about time that Nyewood Lane had had a bit of an upgrade, and yeah, let's hope the football club can put it together. And I did read that they said the council already approved some plans many years ago, and they were a lot bigger than what they are. So you'd like to think the Bognor Regis council or the council in that area will be working with the club. Let's hope so. Anyway.
I know they're working towards obviously a football foundation grant, and I think they may have already got the approval for that. But I'm not entirely sure of the whole details. But I'm sure more and more information will come out about that as the months go by. Obviously, what do you love most about the Bognor Football Club? Obviously, you're saying obviously you've been involved quite a while now. What do you love most about it?
I love the fact that everyone's approachable. You know, you can go and see Jack. He walks around the ground. You can go and see Simon. Obviously, you got people like Ian and Lee and everyone. And the club is just welcoming. It's a community club. You can have a drink on the terrace. You can interact with people. The fans come and clap you after the game and shake your hands. The fans come in the bar. That's what a football club should be. And I think a lot of clubs further up the pyramid have forgotten why they're there. And a football club is there to serve its community. And that's what Bognor Regis Town does very well. And, you know, I've seen it in other clubs as well. We're not the only ones. I've seen it even clubs even further down the pyramid than where we are. But that is what you've got to do. And I think, you know, the fact that everybody's approachable and everyone is working towards a greater good. And I don't think you could say that at many clubs further up the pyramid. And I was watching Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix recently. And
interesting.
Yeah,
documentary.
Yeah, and you know what? You know, the guy there, Stuart Donaldson, he said that when this football club doesn't want me anymore, I will move on. It's a shame that a lot of football people involved in football don't take that mantra as well, because, you know, some owners of football clubs are ruining football clubs, and it's just good at Bognor Regis Town that even though he is not always the most popular person involved in the football club, you can't argue that what Jack has done at that football club is phenomenal. And like I say, everyone at the club is approachable, and it's a community club. It's in its community, and that's what every club should be. It's very hard, I know, further up the pyramid. I get that. You can't get the same feeling, but, you know, at our level, it's great. And they're the things that make non-league football and watching Bognor a joyful experience.
No, I fully agree with that. And whenever I've been at the club, I always feel welcomed. I always feel like part of their, you know, they're quoting it a lot these days, that Rock's family. I think that's really what it's like. It's like a family feel, family orientated club. Obviously away from Bognor though, Dan, if you've mentioned some teams already previously, but do you follow any teams further up the pyramid as well as Bognor?
Well, I wouldn't say I follow, in the sense that I used to regularly watch my local Football League side, Gillingham. I went quite regularly for about 20 years. However, again, this goes back to your previous question. I got very disillusioned with the way the club is run. I'm not going to get into that on here because that isn't the time for this podcast, and Bognor fans don't want to hear about my gripes to do with a club that they're not involved with. But yeah, so I followed them for 20 odd years. I went regularly home and away. And it was a good laugh, but let's just say I don't agree with how the club's run anymore, so I don't really go and watch them anymore, and it's unlikely that I'll probably be back unless the owner decides to go.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of fans become disillusioned with clubs when, you know, they some owners that they don't like, or the way the places, you know, the attitude or the morale in around the ground, you can kind of sense it. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you mentioned with the Sunderland Netflix thing, you kind of see that even at that level. It does happen as soon as things start going wrong, and it's a results obviously based business, and things are not looking good off the pitch. Fans will soon turn away, and I think, you know, that really is an issue. I think clubs need to look at that more often, because the fan base is what keeps clubs alive, really. Yeah,
and I think absolutely, and I think further up the pyramid, there's a lot of clubs who take fans for granted, and unfortunately, the person who is running the club I used to love is for me not the right person to be running that football club. But like I say, this is not a podcast about them. But yeah, I regularly went to watch them, but I haven't been for about 4 seasons now. So yeah, very long time I haven't been.
What has been your favourite Bognor trip? Obviously, we've had quite a few over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons. There's been many designs over the years. Quite like our current design with the Reynolds furniture this season, but wondered what your favourite was.
Yeah, so I used to quite like the blue away kit. So I'm never averse to a blue away kit. It's my favourite colour. So if Mr. Robinson can sort out another blue away kit, it'd be popular for me.
No, I like the blue. Do you mean the blue and white one?
Yeah, but I think just anything that's blue is a good away strip for me.
No, I agree. I think the blue, sort of high tie, the blue one returned, I think. It's now time for the quick fire rocks players round. I know, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, Dan, but basically I give you a set of players, and I understand you might not know some of the players if you've obviously not been aware of them.
Yeah.
But if you know of a player and you think, the first player that comes into your head, you preferred out of these. I've got 6 pairs of players.
Yeah.
So here we go. Graham Mariner or Gary Young?
I didn't see either of them play.
Defenders.
I'd say Graham Mariner.
Graham Mariner, good choice. Gary Charman or Tim Bond? Obviously, you mentioned.
Absolutely, Tim Bond. Absolutely.
Tim Bond. Yeah, I think he's one of those players that we don't really mention. That
no, he's very underrated, but a great centre half. Yeah.
No, Phil Turner or Stuart Green?
Oh, Stuart Green.
Yeah, agree. Matt Whitehead or Seb Wallace-Taylor?
I didn't see either of them play, unfortunately.
Both were very good.
Yeah.
Tom Boyle or Peter Durin?
I'd say Tom Boyle because I don't quite think Peter Durin cut the mustard when he was at the football club. I'm afraid.
It's a shame for him, really, because being such a young player,
he was
into the fire a bit. I thought
he was a bit.
Dean Maynard or Ibra Sikaja?
Was he the guy that we had last season? The guy up front?
Yes, he played when we were in the National South.
I'd say probably. I don't know much about Dean Maynard, but he was probably slightly. Was he a forward, Dean Maynard?
He was also a forward, yes.
I'd probably go from him just because the other guy wasn't at the football club long enough to really make a judgment call.
Okay, no problem. What are your thoughts on where we can finish next season, Dan?
Well, are we going to get a next season? I mean,
that's the question.
That is the question. I mean, God only knows, when it's going to start. Yeah, obviously it will happen. It will start sooner or later. When it does, that is anyone's guess at the moment. If you look at this season, a lot of them players were learning. The 2 young brothers. We're trying to think their names here. The 2 young brothers. Hang on a minute, I wrote them down earlier. Bear with me.
The Lees?
Oh yeah, the Lees. Yeah, 2 young lads.
Tommy Lee.
Yeah, a few other young players. They've had a season now at this level, and they were very good at times, but also at other times they were poor. And yeah, I think next season we're going to be a threat. But a lot depends whether we can keep this team together. I was listening to your pod you did with Guppy and Adam the other day, and he's already said that Joe Cook's probably going to go, which is a shame. Dan Smith, can we keep hold of him? You need a goal scorer. You need a goal scorer, otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. So if we can keep the core of this team together, then we will go very close next season. However, you need to be consistent. And I think if you look at us, since we got relegated, we're just not consistent enough. We beat Folkestone this season, home and away, but we lost to Cheshunt. You can't do that if you want to get promoted. You've got to be consistent every week, and you've got to be able to produce against the weaker sides. And too many times over the last 2 seasons, we've been very poor against very poor teams. You look at Mersham this season, not Mersham last season, because Mersham last season were a very good side. But if you look at Mersham this season, we're 2-0 down. You can't do that. You've got to get going from the start. You've got to put teams that are down the bottom, like your Mershams, to sword. And if you don't, then you will be where we are, which is mid-table and kind of just on the periphery of the playoffs. But I think if we can find some consistency next season and we can keep this core of this team together, we're not going to be able to keep everyone. That's just the reality of the situation we're in. But we will go close. We will go very close. But again, like I say, it's down to consistency, and it's making sure that we can keep players fit and we can get a regular team out. I've lost track of the amount of times I have to change or Andrew does it now, but I used to do it for a little while. But the amount of different players I used to keep adding to the appearance record is phenomenal. But if we can if you look at when we were successful at this level, it's when we had a good core of 15 players that you knew when they went out on that field they would get a result, and that's what we need to get back to. We can't keep having this where we have a player come in, he plays for 6 games, he gets injured or he gets called back, and then we put someone else in who's just not up to the same standard.
That is the question. Obviously, we've been helped by Pompey, Brighton, likes of Reading at times as well with loan players. And I think there's only so much way you can go with that. Sometimes the player will get recalled at a point of a drop of a hat, and that's been, I think, at times last season a trouble we had. I think we were away to, I think it was Kingstonian or Corinthian Casuals, and we had literally 2 players on the bench.
We won that game though.
Yeah, we won it. We couldn't believe it because we had only 2 on the bench.
Yeah.
And Pompey had basically recalled all of their lads. So we were surprised to get the win there, and Kingstonian were obviously doing well at the time as well.
Yeah.
So it was really a bit of a shocker. Obviously, looking at we've got one of the youngest sides on average, they kept saying last year. What are your views on how do we strengthen the side for next year? Do we need an experienced head in the middle, or is there somebody up front we need to, up there with Dan Smith? What are your views on that?
Well, let's just say we've been crying out for a decent central midfielder for about 3 years. I remember I messaged Guppy at the Horsham game, and I was very impressed by, is it Jake Flanagan, the centre midfielder?
Yes.
He's a player that we've been looking for a very long time. Last season we had Theo Withington, who was very good.
Yes.
A shame we couldn't get him back. Brilliant player. Way too good for Ismail Premier League, by the way. And we need a central midfielder. Can someone mould Michael Birmingham and we can get him back? I mean,
I would love that.
Yeah.
Get a Michael Birmingham clone. That would be great.
Yeah, or if anyone can have a word with Kane Willis, see if he wants to come back. But we need a central midfielder. We need someone else who can regularly score goals, and we need a centre half in the same mould as Stuart Axon, Tim Bond, or if we can get, who's the lad that's been out injured for a very long time? He was doing really well, but then he got injured. He's been out for a long time now.
Chad Field.
Yeah, if we can get Chad Field back to being the player he was, then we won't need a centre half. But unfortunately, he's been very curtailed by injuries, hasn't he? But like I say, if we could keep Joe Cook, which by what Guppy says is very unlikely. But yeah, if we can find a centre half from somewhere, a centre midfielder and a striker, that's the core of your team, and we'll go very close if we can. But as Jack and Robbie often says, it's not easy to do, is it? It's very easy for me to say, but it's not very easy for them to do.
No, I wouldn't. I don't envy their job at all, both of them really, because they're under unsurmountable pressure all the time. Obviously, the fans want the team to do well and everything else. But obviously, on a more positive note, Dan, obviously, I think this is the case. I think we're remaining as champions of Sussex, given obviously the COVID-19 suspension and obviously no final, I would guess, this year. Obviously, it's usually beginning of May. You couldn't write this stuff, could you?
No, not really, but we'll take it. If we can keep it for another season, then all good. Didn't we? Did we have we went out, didn't we? We lost to.
We did.
We lost to Brighton, didn't we? But we're not.
We lost.
We're certainly not going to complain, are we? That song about being the champions of Sussex will probably carry on being sung by the away fans, and we'll take what we can at the moment. I think, given our league position.
Exactly. Keep positive. That's the way I think. Well, who, in your opinion, was Bognar's best player of this cut short 2019-20 season?
So again, like I said, I haven't seen that many games, but the games I have seen, I think the Lee brothers, 2 very good players, and if we can. If we go again with them next season, then they're only going to get better. You saw the goal at Horsham. If he does that every week, we've got a player on our hands, certainly. Was that Ashton who scored that, or was it the other lad?
Tommy Lee.
Oh, Tommy Lee, yeah. So, if he keeps on doing that, then, we got a very good player on our hands.
Do you have any funny stories whilst supporting the Rocks in recent seasons, Dan, that you'd like to share with other fans?
Yeah, I got a couple of them. So I dragged myself to Brentwood away. I think it was 2015-16 season. We were labouring again against a very poor side on a very horrible pitch. And Ollie Pearce was playing for the club at the time. He was mainly taking the corners. And I think he'd taken about 3 or 4 corners, and they'd been very bad. And I don't want to swear, so I won't. But basically, I was standing near the dugouts. I quite enjoy standing by the dugout, especially in the second half. But I was standing near to where Jamie Howe at the time. And he said, "Don't you ever take another beep corner again." And funny enough, 2 minutes to go, maybe a minute to go. He swings one in. I can't remember if it got a touch off someone, but it went straight in. And it was just very, very, very funny. And I wouldn't say it was funny at the time, but my other funny story is, and I mentioned it in the programme a few months ago, I made the trek all the way to Leiston, which is not the easiest place to get to at the best of the times. And we got absolutely hammered, 5-2. We never fared well when we went to East Anglia at all, again, as I mentioned in the programme recently, and it was foggy, and by the time we left the ground, you could not see more than about 3 foot in front of you, and it must have taken me a good 5 hours to get home, and I literally could only get home by following the lights of the car in front of me. That's how bad it was, and I laugh about it now, but I certainly wasn't laughing about it at the time. But it still makes me chuckle a bit now. But yeah, I certainly wasn't laughing about it at the time. But yeah, crazy times. And I wasn't too concerned when they moved to Leeson, Needham and Lowestoft into the Southern League, just to say that.
No, that's really funny stories there, Dan, and that's what I think one of the parts of the reason obviously a lot of fans follow Bognor is the people around it and the people involved with the club in all walks of life. Obviously, fans' perspective as well as players and obviously the management team as well. What would be your advice for readers of your match day programme, how to get involved in the sort of work you carry out week in, week out? It's obviously a real commitment, but you have the passion. Do you agree you can make things happen in the journalistic world on your own 2 feet? Do you think, like all the stuff you've done online as well, is it basically off your own back that you're doing it, or do you need to do things in order to get to that place?
Well, absolutely, I'm doing it off my own back. Let's just say I probably wouldn't advise anyone to get involved in a match day programme unless you've got a lot of time and you're single. But yeah, no, I was talking about this with someone else earlier. So basically, I've never trained in journalism. I basically read a lot. I've got a lot of books in my house. I've got loads on football and a lot of other stuff that I'm interested in. But I've got loads of books. I grew up reading fanzines. Fanzines were massive when I was growing up. And I kind of worked my way from there, really. And I wasn't very good at that many subjects at school, mainly because I probably wasn't concentrating as much as I should have been, because I was probably too worried about football. But yeah, one subject I was good at was English. And I was sort of trying to become a bit of a blogger, and I'd done a few things online with a website, and I was getting there, but I was getting a lot of criticism, and it hurt. It's never nice for people to say that your work isn't very good. And a previous girlfriend, not my last girlfriend, but a previous girlfriend prior to that, she had a journalism degree, and she came into my life, and she really encouraged me to do it. And someone who had a journalism degree knew what they were talking about, and she just encourages me, and she told me where I was going wrong, and we did a lot of sessions together with the writing, and she looked a lot at my work, and my passion and my desire came back, and it just went from there, really. And you've got one thing I've learned is you've got to believe in yourself, and if you want to do something, you can do it. Look, I've got a very stable job, what I do, and if I push myself, then I might have been able to, trying to find a way in there. But you've got to do it when you're very young. I get a lot of joy out of writing, but let's not make no bones about it. I'm not making any money from writing. I'm doing it basically out of my own passion and my own desire to see my work online. But if you want to do it, just believe in yourself. But other things I would say, use criticism to motivate you. Probably 5 years ago, I probably took criticism to heart, and it kind of hurt and it stung. But you know what? I use that criticism now to motivate me to do better. And 9 times out of 10, I've had more good feedback than I've had bad feedback. But yeah, I probably didn't believe in myself enough. You've got to believe in yourself. You've got to want to do it. You've got to want to make a career in it. Obviously, I was listening to your own pod with Steve Bone, and you said how much Steve Bone had done for you. And there's been other people for me. Dougie Brimson, he's wrote a lot of books. I've had advice from him. Brian Kennedy, he's a big Exeter City fan and an Arsenal fan. He's helped me massively with writing, and he's given me encouragement. Like I say, my ex-girlfriend, we're not together anymore. She did a lot for me. And I think I forgot to mention it earlier, but some people forget the people behind the scenes in the programme, or the people that have helped me with work. Like, she's not at the football club anymore, but Holly Childs, she used to do a piece in the programme for me. People don't see that in the background. Simon Cook, who does his bit in the programme. You got my friend Stephen Riddell, who does my proofing. You know, and my last girlfriend, Anne-Marie, she did a lot of proofing for me as well. You know, these are all people in the background that you don't necessarily see that contribute and help with the program, but without them sort of people, you wouldn't be able to put a program together. But yeah, back to your original question. Yeah, you've got to believe in yourself. There's that song, isn't there, by is it Pamplona Faith, or I can't say her name very well, but she says you've got to make your own kind of music, and that's kind of what you got to do. You got to put yourself out. You got to put yourself out there. You got to be not scared to take criticism, but you got to react to criticism, because there'll be people who will criticise you, but you've got to learn from that. And also, one tip I learned from David Bookman, who's a very talented writer and a very good photographer, is make sure you get your facts wrong, because that's the first thing people will pick up on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and all good advice for everybody listening. I'm sure any budding journalists out there obviously take it in and try and do your thing. Obviously, it's a very difficult sort of area to get into, as you've already sort of said. It's a lot, very time consuming at times, very sort of not very rewarding at times either. And I obviously can't thank Steve Bone enough for all the opportunities given me. Obviously with the match reporting, and I'm now considered doing the main match reports for pretty much all the games unless Steve's there. So I can't thank him enough for that. And as you say, it's a lot of people behind the scenes that don't necessarily get named that also put in the work and help you to put these things together. So that's all good stuff. Final two questions then, Dan. Obviously, a frustrating season ends. We've kind of gone over this, but just to finalise, will it always be the season that we could, should have, would have made the playoffs? What, in your opinion, what is your opinion on where we would have finished, and what are your hopes for next season?
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? You know, that Horsham game, that showed the best of this Bognor current Bognor side, and you just think, you know, if only we'd been able to play out them last 10 games, what could we have done? My heart says we would have made it, but my head says, if you look at our consistency over the course of the season, we probably would have just fell short, and that probably would have been we probably would have finished 7th, 6th. I would probably say we probably would have slipped up a couple of times in the running. Like I say, my head says we would have gone on a brilliant run and we probably would have won 7 out of 10 games and made it. But I think if you look at our consistency over the course of the season, we may have just fallen short. There were some very good sides up there. Cole Sholton were a very good team. Horsham, another very good team. Folkestone, Cray Wanderers, you know, they could have even won the league. They were just hitting form at the right time. And like you said, that was a hard game we had. We should have played them 2 Sundays ago, and that would have been a very, very hard game. You know, there was other good sides up there. Enfield, a very, very good side at this level. And I think maybe if I'm being honest, we probably would have fell just short. But there's lots to look forward to. You like I say, if we can keep this team together, if we can get some more players in, then I think next season, if there is a next season, depending on obviously what goes on over the next couple of weeks, you get me back on in 3 weeks' time, the whole situation, you know, might have changed again. But yeah, as and when next season does happen, yeah, we will be up there. I think we will go very close. But the key for us, and as I said it earlier, is consistency, and that's what Robbie often says, and that's what we've got to find to be successful at this level.
No, I totally agree. Consistency is the key to this league, and I think if you're going to finish as champions, you're going to have to consistently win and draw. Losses, obviously, you know, I think part of the problem towards the end of last season was that the wins were becoming harder and harder to get, and we were becoming more and more under pressure. And I think you might be right in that we might have fallen short just outside those playoffs. I think we might have got a real run of it, but I think, yeah, some of the games might have, you know, become banana skins. But Daniel, many thanks for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you at many games in the future, whenever that may be. I really appreciate you spending the time talking to me today for On The Rocks. Thank you for your continued hard work with the Rocks official match day programme. And I look forward to meeting you at some point.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate that, Liam. Yeah, glad to come on. If you want me to come on and later on in the season, if you're struggling, then just give me a shout. But yeah, it's a good bit of therapy for me, and hopefully my ramblings are appreciated by people. And let's hope that in a few months' time we can get back to some sort of normality, because I think that's all we want right now, isn't it, really?
Hear, hear. Again, a big thanks to Rock's official match day programme editor, Daniel Story, for being my guest today and getting the chance to to chat with him was all great fun for me, and I appreciate him taking the time. I want to let all fans know that we are all wanting the season to get going again, but it seems we're going to have to wait and see what happens. We hope to continue with future episodes of On The Rocks in the interim. So if you would like to get your say in an upcoming episode of On The Rocks, then please contact me on Twitter at Liam Goodley, or email me at the present time, goodley@hotmail.co.uk, whilst there is no football. If your business would like to sponsor our podcast, then please contact David Robinson to talk you through the options. Get your company mentioned on the air with us every episode. This has been an On The Rocks podcast production brought to you by the BRTFC Supporters Club. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. Up the Rocks.